So welcome to Travel Memories at Red Deer Public Library, virtual edition. Today we are fortunate to have Brenda and Gerry joining us from their home near Innisfail. This is one of the beauties of doing it online. Everybody can stay in the comfort of their home. So if you've been attending for a while, you know that my name is Priscilla and we've been doing this for about 8 years, and previously, Brenda and Gerry did a talk on Sri Lanka. That was in June of 2019. So they have lots of things in the can for us, but this is the one I picked for December, India, where it's nice and hot and colorful and totally different from Red Deer. So if you're watching this on Facebook Live, in the comments below, you can ask questions. And at the end of the talk, I will ask Brenda and Gerry, see if they can come up with some answers. Couple of things I want to mention that the library has just started for December. One of them is something called Spice It Up. So they're little boxes with spices and recipes in them. And for the month of December, it's ginger and cinnamon. And you can make the recipe and take a picture and post on Instagram, the library's Instagram page. And there's then you'll be eligible for a prize. So we want to spice up your life. And the other thing that we're just starting are these bags here. So this one's called Travel Memories India, appropriately, and it's got 5 different surprise items from the library's collection in there, and you can sign this out, and it signs out as one item, so we're not taking up a lot of your sign out privilege, but something else to add some interest to your December. What else have I got here? So I just want to mention that the next talk in January, on January 6th, will be Shannon talking about her kayaking trip and Desolation Sound on the west coast of BC. So this is another spectacular Canadian adventure.
Okay, we're Brenda and Gerry. We're from Innisfail. My husband's a retired doctor. I'm a retired teacher. We've traveled to over 100 countries, so we do have a selection of slideshows we can share with you. When we're home, we still love our photography. We golf, we sew, we garden. Nature and wildlife are still probably our greatest loves. Namaste. Let's head to India. As you can see from this opening slide, we did cover a little bit of territory. Now, the blue dots are on a second visit to the country via a cruise ship. But today, because of the size of the country, we're only going to do the northern part. It was definitely an adventure just getting to New Delhi. You can see that we went via Emirates, which is why we flew to Seattle. A total of 12.5 hours difference in time zones. But oh my gosh, it's well worth the travels to get to see this amazing, amazing culture. The very first day, we started off in the political area. This is called India Gate, and it's a memorial to lost soldiers who died in World War I and other Indian battles. In Victory Square, we actually see many of the government buildings, and then in the distance, you can see the dome of the presidential palace. Okay, from that area, we look back towards the India Gate, and every direction we look, we just see amazing, amazing artwork. The fences, the gardens, the statues, they're extremely ornate. The elephant is a symbol of prosperity in India. Luckily, it was a Sunday afternoon, and we got a chance to see the local people enjoying the public spaces. And they were very, very interested in us foreigners. On the top left, you can see he's taking a picture of us. And on the very first day, one of my wishes was to see a snake charmer. And this was our first, but I'll talk a little more about that when we see another one. The roadsides are just entertainment in themselves, filled with tiny shops and businesses. And I tried to imagine me walking up to this man and asking to buy a house. Tombs and temples are dotted throughout the city. And this was our first one. And I will apologize right now for my pronunciations and hope that I get them close to right. But please forgive me, the language is quite difficult. Humayun's tomb, a World Heritage Site. Now, this was the second Mughal emperor. He's buried here in 1565. And he has wives buried here. And of interest is Isa Khan, who was a nobleman and was Humayun's favorite barber. So he got the privilege of being buried here. Many features of the Mughal architecture are really extremely unique. Our favorite one were the marble screens you can see in the center of this picture. Made out of, they're called jali, and they're made out of one piece of marble. They're just an exquisite building or temple. Lapis lazuli, the tiles on here you can see in the center one, they're pretty worn, but lapis lazuli was definitely a favorite of the Indian architecture. Now, all the gardens at the temples follow the same design. Okay, they're divided into 4 and then 4 again. And the waterways, the 4 waterways represent wine, honey, milk, and water. And most of the temples we visited had this same design. Supper. We had some amazing meals. And these flaming potato croquettes were excellent. The sign on the entrance was a little unnerving because we had walked down a dark alley to get to it in the first place. But no problems, we had a great time. The next day we visit a Hindu temple and note the symbols. Now the swastika was used long before it became the hated symbol of the Germans. The peacock, as you notice on the right, is the national bird. Streets and roads in India are simply beyond description. We can share the pictures, but you have no idea what it's like until you're there. For example, here's an Indian RV. Now they're probably going from holy site to holy site and going on a pilgrimage. But if you look at the top, you can see that there's one of those, it's a swimming pool or a bathtub. Now, or a hot tub, we're assuming it wasn't full of water, but we don't know. This is extremely typical taxi traffic. Now, according to our information at that time, 2013, there were 18,000 of these tuk-tuks. There were 40,000 buses. There were 500,000 motorbikes. And before they did before there were any changes to exhaust, our guide Mukesh said that you could wear a shirt for an hour when you were driving and it would be filthy dirty. Women in India never seem to stop working. More often than not, the loads we saw were all carried by women, and quite often the men were simply watching. Now, as we were on an agricultural tour, a special visit to this institute was arranged. Now, it was fascinating in that the scientists in 19 divisions here, they do all agricultural research and they're working on improving the production in all of India. And they are making huge progress on feeding their millions. But as we know, it's in the news right now, so I'm not sure what has happened since we were there. From that great place, we ended Old Delhi, and it is not very prosperous. In this area, you don't see many cars at all, but you see many other unique forms of transporting goods. In the jugs on the top left is probably milk, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. The rule is as many people as you can cram onto any machine, it's okay. And it was an absolute blast to just sit back and watch the chaos go on around us. Never ever did we arrive when we thought we were scheduled to arrive. Our guide seemed okay with this and everything. We got everything in. But he would say, we'll be there in 10 minutes, and an hour later we would arrive. So that was part of the fun as well. With a population of over 18 million in New Delhi, it has to move however it can. Look at the fellow sitting on the top left there. The faces in India were absolutely fascinating, and we were able to capture a few special moments. Now, our next stop was the Jami Masjid, which is the Friday Mosque, and it was completed in 1656 after 6 years to construct it. No legs could be shown at all, so we had to rent the appropriate attire. The women had sort of a gown to put on, and the men just were able to wrap around. Notice in the bottom right corner, in the inlaid marble using black onyx, they have a spot for the prayer mats to be laid out. 20,000 people could attend a Friday service. Electricity, not very reliable in this area of the city. Can you imagine being an electrician and trying to sort this mess out? You look at these places and you just wonder what lies behind the walls. There were children everywhere, and sometimes children with children. And sometimes it was a difficult thing to look at, the poor. The street market, so colorful and absolutely full of unique smells and sights. This group was getting ready for a parade. The oxen were painted up, the flowers, usually marigolds, were strung, and the children were very excited. We walked by the Red Fort, which was completed in 1639, and it was here that the national flag was hosted when India became an independent nation. And a very touching stop was at Ragat, the site of Gandhi's cremation. It's an incredibly popular site with all the locals and the tourists. And every October, it's his birthday, and every January, they do have big gatherings here. And the words on his tomb speak of, "Oh God." The statues of Gandhi are displayed throughout India. And I think that saying up here, recall the face of the poorest and most helpless man whom you have seen, and ask yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any help. The next morning, we look out our hotel window and we see a bullock cart heading down the road, but at least it doesn't make much noise. Rush hour? Nope, just normal traffic. And you can see the car carrier there, which would hold about 6 cars. We are heading just outside the city now to Qutb Minar, and you can see it's Arabic for pole or axis. An absolutely fascinating tower that commemorates the first Muslim kingdom. Extremely decorative. You used to be able to climb up there, but I believe they closed it, and I'm assuming it would be safety. And we always find a little bit of wildlife to catch our eye. Something interesting was all along our route, there were groups of men either playing cards, talking, having coffee, playing music. And it was very, very evident. You never saw groups of women doing this. I think the women were all working. This is a graventar, which is kind of like a violin with bells. It was beautiful music, and this was welcoming us to lunch. We visited a gigantic dairy. Now, the workers here work 8 hours a day. They make $1 an hour. And this plant supplies 40% of the milk to New Delhi. And just a fascinating, fascinating visit we had here. Excess milk is stored as powder, as you can see in the bags. Behind the glass, though, the workers are packaging the milk bags, which is in the inset. So these bags of milk can last up to 90 days and do not need to be refrigerated. And so the ultimate goal of these dairies is to supply milk to every child in India, even those rural areas. Then we try to get back on the highway. Now, truck traffic is stopped because they can't go into the city until 9 p.m. and then they have to leave by 7 p.m. There was one trip where we actually, and we are going down the wrong side right now. We drove down a 6-lane highway going the wrong way and just zipping in and out of traffic. And we did this for about 15 kilometers until we could get back over the other side. We all wanted to close our eyes, but we're scared if we closed our eyes, something worse might happen. So we just sat back and enjoyed the adventure. Cricket is a very, very popular sport in the country. And anywhere there was an open field, there would be children playing. And of course, there are special cricket fields as well. You better build a wall around your property. If you don't, somebody may come along and claim it. So these rock walls define property. And peacocks, again, being the national bird. We got a chance to go to Sir Divan for an evening of entertainment and food. Oh, yeah, and we had a camel cart ride in. Enthusiastic entertainers and so incredibly colorful. You see the guy in the middle who is riding his horse. The women were beautifully adorned with jewels and makeup, and the men with their smiles and colorful turbans. And all their little guest cabins were green. In other words, they're made of mud and straw, with the walls being 1 foot thick. We were able to watch traditional methods of cooking. And if you look at the largest of the pictures, you can see her pulling the spindle, one hand and then the other. This was amazing. So 9 meters of cloth, and this man just whipped that turban around his head and was dressed again in no time. The evening show included the agile dancers and some puppet shows, and puppets go very far back in Indian history. The next morning, outside our hotel window, as you can see by the inset there, we looked down on a tent city. But look at the beautiful, beautiful lady that comes out and gets ready to probably head to work that day. And then we're off to the largest market in Delhi, the wholesale food market. 30 acres of good, open 24 hours a day, except Sunday when it is cleaned. People come from all the surrounding villages for wholesale purchase and to take back home. It's noisy, it's smelly, it's congested, but absolutely fascinating. There's melons and carrots and corn and potatoes and onions and truckloads of cauliflower. It took us a few minutes to realize what these were. And look at the scale that they're going to measure the load of cauliflower with. There's many, many kinds of carts and wheelbarrows that were used for transporting the goods. Oh, and again, the faces. Now, we asked about the fellow with the orange hair, and we'd seen so much of it. We'd seen so many guys, and we thought it meant something, but what we were told is it's just to hide the gray. And I thought it'd be interesting to start that tradition here. Again, taxis, tuk-tuks always have room for one more. Our rice production business was also fascinating. We had no idea what went into getting rice from a field to the table. It has to be polished, cleaned, sorted, the discarded husks go to cattle feed, and then of course it has to be all packaged up. You can see the package in the bottom right. And then they have to be loaded in bags for transport. We saw these ones were actually going to Iraq, if I remember correctly. The cost of transporting is huge, so no truck leaves without it being loaded to the absolute maximum. Cloth, it's also recycled. Imagine needing this coming down Highway 2 in Alberta. Every restaurant had its greeter. They weren't always this elegant. Take a look at this man's shoes. They're also in the next picture. And the charm that was hanging on the door was used to ward off evil. Now the meal, which is called kali, and you can see the leather slippers are called juti. Every dish has its own bowl. We had lassi to drink, which is yogurt, water, and then it's sweetened and frothed. Sometimes you can add salt and add a little cumin. It was okay. Wouldn't say it was a favorite. Just one slide of a visit to a chicken farm. It was more a big sell job. He was trying to sell his egg drinks, his egg jam, and but we were treated like royalty here. Crops of wheat and canola were predominant in the countryside. However, 50% of farmers work on less than 5 acres, so this is not a standard picture here. Bricks and kilns were very common in this part of India. And the women were accompanied by their children to make up the workforce. Turbans. Apparently there's 52 different kinds of ways to wind them. Color can be important, but other times it's just a fashion statement. And we were told that they're very handy. They can be a bed sheet, a bandage, a towel, a helmet, which I got quite a chuckle out of, protect you from the heat. They show their caste and a touch of fashion. Look at these colors. Isn't that amazing? Some styles were not quite as formal. Some were big and bulky, and others just had a minimum of material. The water reservoirs on the roof were very interesting. I like the fact that they used the water tank as a design on their house. We stopped at a flower seed farm, which was very unique and a very, very successful business. They do ship boxes of seeds to Canada as well, and then those seeds would be packaged in smaller areas. The workers here earn a whole $2 a day. They also have a lot of greenhouses, and you can see for vegetables here being tomatoes, of course. Cow patties are also big business, and we love seeing the artistic way that people stack them to dry, or after they had dried, to stack them for storage. This is a pretty good example of rural India. You've got the water buffalo, you've got the tractor, and you've got the farmer. This was kind of sad to visit, but the ladies were happy enough. This roadside hut was the home to these beautiful women who were laborers on a nearby farm, and they had 2 buffalo to sustain them. They were very friendly, welcomed our questions, and this is the house that they are living in. I find water buffalo rather skinny, ugly beast, but at least he posed for me. In contrast, the Gill farm was a 3-generation operation. So like a 500-acre farm would employ between 40 and 60 people. So you can see the difference in how farming works there. So they're growing wheat, radish seed, cauliflower, mustard, and rice. And they have 2 buffalo and 2 cows to provide milk. And the manure is fed into a biodigester and provides gas for the stove. Extremely well educated, like they all had university degrees, and very, very friendly people. Grandpa was 88 years old and still active at the local university. Note his silver bracelet and uncut beard, which identifies him as a Sikh. Now, the other 2 things that are known for is they carry a kanga, which is the comb for the hair, the kashla, which is soldier shorts, and the kirpan, which is a dagger. Oops. Just around the corner from the farm in the village, there's always something to be amazed at. And we encountered smiles everywhere they went. I still believe they were the friendliest people that we have ever encountered in our travels. Oh, and even the Playboy bunny makes the men smile. So now we're off on the railroad. We're going back to Delhi. There's more than 14,000 trains that run daily, transporting 13 million people. This is first class, And yet there were still stories to tell. One man, for example, sat with a suitcase between his knees for the entire trip. On another trip, we had a whole family come on board and actually had a ceremony while we sat and listened. We're only in Delhi long enough to head to the airport. This is the morning traffic. And off we go. And it's very difficult to see. And I'm sorry, we're using a fairly small laptop here. I know our pictures may not be quite the quality they should be, but these are the Himalayas. And they followed us all along and stretched as far as we could see. Kajarajo is our next stop, and we were absolutely entranced by the green countryside, but Kajarajo means date palm. From 950 to 1050 AD, the Chandela dynasty, and there were 85 temples on these 20 square kilometers, but only 22 remain. On this temple, there's over 800 sculptures which depict gods and goddesses and beasts and warriors, sensuous maidens, dancers, musicians, and of course, I don't know if you know, but what the Kajarajo temples are famous for are erotic scenes. Absolutely exquisite building. And such detailed scene. If you look at the top corner, you can see, Gerry, this one, you can see that she's getting a thorn out of her foot. And that means she has some sort of a problem. The tiny people, and you can see in the bottom picture there, the people that are a little tiny compared to the other ones, they serve the royalty. So this site is known for its erotic Kama Sutra carvings, and they celebrate the marriage between Shiva and Parvati. So it's a love manual. And hundreds of elephants, again, remember, a sign of prosperity. Representing the Indian god Ganesh, who is the remover of obstacles. The grounds were beautifully tended and added to the beauty of the site. Now, the Jain temple was similar. Jainism has about 5 million followers in India, and they're extreme pacifists. They believe that every living thing has a soul and will not even kill insects. A very rich group. Now, in the top left corner, you can see the little attendant behind the man, and again, showing that they are servants. Everywhere we went, there were people hoping for a handout or trying to attract our attentions. We would get musicians, holy men, women, and children. Note the coal in the eyes of the baby that keeps the evil spirits away. 29% live under the poverty line of $1,000 a year. Souvenir shopping, Indian style. That was our bus steps, but they weren't unfriendly. They were aggressive, but they did take no for an answer, and we actually thoroughly enjoyed bartering with them. Our hotels were grand. Each one had a doorman or a greeter in some sort of splendid uniform. Traffic always has to yield to the sacred cattle. They can walk wherever they want to. A roadblock, this is to warn of workers ahead who are painting the road by hand. And we arrived at the rural visit of Basari. Oh, this was a great visit. And a crowd gathered, and we enjoyed hearing about their lives. We learned a little bit about school, and we looked at a school book, and somebody recited the ABCs. It was fascinating. Thinking of our 8 acres at home made us feel very rich indeed. So imagine supporting your family on the produce of 5 acres. So this man, his father had 20, divided it 4 ways to his children, and this farmer's 2 sons will try to farm on 2.5 acres each. It's a small buffalo herd. I believe there were 3 cows on the edge of town. A very large dairy herd would be 300, and that's quite rare. And then we just wandered through the streets, and the people came out to watch us or to wave at us. Beautiful saris, beautiful people. Look at the bangles on her wrist, a very common form of jewelry here. And inside is a typical home. I believe 6 people lived here. They all have an inner courtyard with a fire for cooking and, of course, the satellite dish on top. This was a beauty salon, and she welcomed us to come in and have a look around. More coal on the eyes to keep the evil away. And this was Main Street. So we're walking down Main Street towards the general store, which has the red arrow there. And then down the bottom, you can see the general store. And we bought some treats for the children that accompanied us in our walks. And you can see the little group. Gerry knelt down so that he was the same level as the children, but as soon as he knelt down, all the children knelt down as well. And dug in mud, once it's been applied, actually makes a very, very good floor, and it does help keep bugs away, apparently. The community well on the left, it's a little hard to make out, but she's standing on a board there and lowering it. And then there's water pumps, as you can see on the other side. They're all very social places and bathing places and laundromats. A small water reservoir also served as a bath and the laundromat, etc. Pardon me. The steps are known as a ghat. And you can see that they're washing children, they're washing clothing, and washing themselves. It's the people who honestly did help make our visit unforgettable. And then we had a bullock cart tour through other parts of the village. And to start off, the cart you can actually see here, I think is the one that got away from its handlers and took off down a hill. Well, what excitement. And the reason I can use the term as excitement is nobody got hurt. They were sort of handled, they were caught very quickly and brought back up when we started our tour. But it was exciting for the people who were on the cart. We weren't. The school wasn't in session, but enough children were around for an anthem exchange. So we sang O Canada, and they sang their anthem, which is shown in the inset, back to us. Beautiful. We get to the restaurant, and the bindi, the forehead spart, is a holy blessing that welcomes us. And the best part of the meal, I thought, was jabali, and we watched them prepare the food. We went into the back, actually, and watched them prepare the food. Now, the beer was good. Indian tea has milk, ginger, and coriander in it. And then that evening, we were treated to some beautiful cultural folk dancing. And the next day, back on the road again. In the top left, this independent milkman collects from 14 families. He collects about 180 liters of milk, and then he takes them to a cooling spot. There are about 3,000 of these collectors in this area. Cattle and buffalo everywhere. And as again, they have the right of way. But take a look at this narrow road we're driving on. And we are on a bus, so there wasn't a lot of space. And the dung piled up artistically. This was another stop we made. This is a roadside business, and they're processing sugar cane. You can see it pouring out of the bottom. It's a gas-produced crusher. Then you boil down the liquid and you put it into the molds that are dug into the ground. Was not the cleanest business we've ever seen. Here, the man is feeding the cane stalks in, and this woman, who would not let us do anything, is tending the boiling sugar. Now, just imagine sitting all day like this, you're cleaning out mint roots out of the field, and they would earn about 200 rupees a day. Everywhere there is motion, there's color, and there's people. And road crews keep us moving. Oxen and their load, please take a look at the wheel. Do you see it there? I was surprised it didn't fall off while we were watching. Taxis full to bursting. And we've never seen so many barber shops and beauty salons right beside the roadways. Every town and city had its tent cities on the outskirts, a reminder of the poverty all around us. At Orca, It was a lunch stop, and it was right beside the river. The gap, which are the stairs, they're used for meditation, prayer, and access to the river, just in case you need to have a bath or you need to do some laundry. Aren't these saris gorgeous? It takes about 6.5 meters of material, and it would cost me, if I was having one made, about $200. Orca was founded in 1531 and has 3 main temples. Jahangir Mahal is 132 rooms and an equal number below the ground. And all over this site are holy men attending it. Some play music. They all want a little contribution as you walk by, but didn't demand it. Beautiful lapis lazuli tiles once again decorated this building. And the colors of the holy makeup made a huge impression. The way it was displayed, very eye-catching, and I commented on that. So they put some purple on me, and all I got was laughter. Lots of little vendors and beautifully colorful women. From Jhansi, we take the train to Agra. Please note the Sikh is showing us he has his dagger with him, just sort of proving that he is a Sikh. And the next day, we took the train to Agra, and then the next day we get some great street scenes as we head out on tour. And we arrive at the Taj Mahal complex. The architecture absolutely surpassing our expectations. Now, the Taj Mahal was built by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in memory of his favorite wife. Now, Mumtaz Mahal died in 1631, and that was after she'd had like 15 children, and then she died in childbirth. It took 20,000 workers 12 years to complete. Absolute perfection. It is beautiful. The details in the marble, they're inlaid with precious gemstones like carnelian and lapis lazuli and malachite and black onyx. It's just, and different colors of marble as well. And the gardens add to the scene. They are still divided into 4 and laid out in the traditional way. On the riverside, the site of the Agra Fort, where the Shah was imprisoned by his son. And we'll visit that later. It is hard to see. So I mentioned, Shah Jahan's wife died giving birth to her 50th child. They'd been married for 19 years, and she was 38 years of age. 8 of their children survived. Pardon me. So it's the mystery and the history that surrounds us that makes this visit even more impressive. So 50,000 visitors can attend in a day. There was a record of 128,000 that attended one day. But if some VIP or very special person shows up, they would close it down just for a couple of hours just to show that person. The red line shows us where we entered and then through the Charbagh Gardens. So you can see divided into 4. We visited a marble factory and watched them in their intricate work. It is amazing how tiny some of these pieces are, and we did buy a beautiful piece. Agra has lots more temples that it's known for. This is called the Jewel Box in marble. And it's got very, very intricate and detailed work. Inside was just great beauty. The tombs in the bottom side there are actually made of yellow marble to replicate the wood. And above the pietra dura, which is the inlaid marble again. And the octagonal kind of ceiling is impressive. Everywhere there are sweepers. Thousands of people are employed as sweepers in India. It was a very hot day. It was probably around 35 degrees. And we would love to have jumped in with those buffalo just to cool off. Sikandra, 1605 to 1612 AD. Again, each temple has the Charbagh Gardens, and these are the waterways we can see. And this one came complete with the black deer. Look at those amazing horns. And great tile work on the domes. This one is all red sandstone and white marble. So intricate. And the recessed ceilings that had actual scenes on them. In the inset, it's the tree of life. The acoustics were amazing inside some of the tombs. This one, as you can see, was not very decorated, this part, but you could hear a pin drop. And in the inset, you can see the jali, the screen, all of carved marble. And it's not just us visiting these sites. There's lots of locals that come to visit as well. The Agra Fort was our last stop of the day, and we stopped here for sunset. The fort on the banks of the Yamuna River was once surrounded by a very deep moat. And you can see the plan of the fort here. We entered up a ramp that was once used by elephants. There's halls, there's courtways, there's galleries, there's harems, and there's dungeons. This place has it all. Now that is a bathtub fit for a Maharaja. Look at the steps to go down into it. And you could float rose petals on the surface of the water. Think of the labor that is required to build these magnificent, magnificent buildings. Here's where the emperor would sit. And he could sit on the throne of his choice. There was a black slate throne or there was a white marble throne. And he would watch the elephants fighting. Now this is where Shah Jahan was imprisoned by his son. And his only request was, I would like a view of the Taj Mahal. And it's in this luxurious prison he spent the last years of his life. And this was his view. A very, very nice point of view in the setting sun. This is the hall of public audience. This is as we're exiting. And we are absolutely in awe of the archways and the shadowings. This hotel we stayed in was so was so big that we all got lost at one point or another. But the streets are still the same, and here we're just stopped waiting for a green light. This style of car was very popular with the officials and the bigwigs, but it looks very old-fashioned to us. We had our pictures taken every single day, and as you can see, they're friendly, they're happy. I will repeat, always room for one more. I truly do not know how our driver managed to keep us cool. The roads were definitely part of the entertainment, and I said to our guide, oh my gosh, how did he drive? And he said, they drive on the left, they drive on the right, they drive backwards, they drive sideways, who knows? And I thought that was a cute quote. Look at the heavy load of bricks, these poor donkeys. Then we stopped to see the potatoes being harvested. The women are doing the sorting and the bagging, and the men carry the filled sacks. We were lucky to be in rural India during some of the harvesting. Most of the grain is cut by hand, laid out to dry, then piled high and transported to a combine. We stopped at Fatehpur Sikri, and here it was a capital for 14 years, and they think it may have been left behind because of water supplies. The stone is made to look like wood. In 1571, this city was abandoned after only 14 years of use. Here's the stage for entertaining. This is a human chessboard. Now, sometimes the harem women were used as pieces, but other times people would wear masks like tigers or elephants, and they would be part of the chess. And here actually is also where elephant executions took place. So if I was a criminal, they would lay me down and then I would be crushed by an elephant walking on me. I thought that was horrific. Beautiful carved jali. the marble screens to let the air blow through and cool down, and a view to the outside. The emperor's gigantic bed, we laughed because we wondered if it's so high so that the women he had in there could not get out. Diwa Ikas, this hall is for a private audience, and look at the beautiful column in the middle of it. The 5-tier Taj Mahal, which was built for recreation. And back on the road again, and we see a canola crop being harvested. And we stop for a closer look. And oh my goodness, we were amazed by the process. So the women in the back are feeding the stalks into the hopper, one bundle at a time. And the men, Gerry, maybe use the men are collecting it. Can you go back, Gerry? The men are collecting it in the pan. Okay, go ahead, Gerry. And then the canola seed is emptied into sacks. And meanwhile, the ladies continue to cut the crop by hand. There are certain times I felt very ashamed of our big bus. Look how they transport the straw. Traffic chaos was the absolute norm every day. Homemade trucks called jagbaras were in the countryside. You start them with a hand crank and they run with that put, 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 put sound. They're all decorated and they have their oil container hung on the side. People, sand, rocks, livestock, all have to be moved. And suddenly, our hotel for the night comes into view. Take a look at that. This was our room, such fun, but we couldn't figure out which switch would turn the lights on. And the view below us. Time for a visit to a national park and try to see tigers. I don't know what these say aside from the name of the park. Great to be in the countryside, no farms, no traffic. And we do see quite a bit of wildlife. Here's a blue bull. You can see the sambar and the spotted deer. Lots of lovable monkeys in all sorts of poses. And a very, very good selection of bird life. The tree pie was one that would just fly right up and take something out of our hand. Wild peacocks running through the woods, but we didn't see any tigers. We just saw their pug marks. And the artwork back at the hotel souvenir shop was great. I wanted to bring this home for our garden, but Gerry felt the plane wouldn't carry it. On the move again, Indian ladies hardworking. I tried to balance the load and all it did was cause more laughter. A small guava farm, a quarter of an acre with 80 trees, and these two ladies are running it for the owner who lives in a nearby city. A beautiful sunset ends this particular day. The next morning, our hotel guard wishes us safe journeys, and we're back on the road again, not knowing what's around the next corner. This area of India is known for its farming, and we see truckloads of straw going by. Some of these may have had recyclable material in them as well. Roadside making brooms. We're on our way to Pushkar. We drive right through Jaipur, but we'll be back. And here's a map just to give you an idea. You can see where Delhi is, and we're now by Jaipur. Pardon me. The men gather in their small groups. The nomads or the gypsies are tradesmen, and they work often with metals, and they stay in town until the work's done and move on. Camels are becoming more frequent as we head for drier country, sometimes right outside our window. A laneway into a small farm, loading one basin of sand at a time. And close by is a huge marble quarry. We can see the loads of rock on the roads and lots of marble shops. Pushkar is home to Pushkar in November, 3 to 5 million people will travel here on this special holy day to bathe or to take home some holy water. The markets we walk through are very unique, especially accompanied by cattle. The camels are decorated to try and attract the tourists for a ride. And the pigs wander about and root through the garbage. Pushkar is home to huge camel sales and lots of beautiful temples as well. We love the ornate towers, each one of them very different. Oh my goodness, they're like balloon trucks. Now, one of these would hold about 3 round bales worth of straw. Religious marches are part of one's lives. Here they're carrying holy water, probably about 150 kilometers. Chickpeas are another crop being harvested. And we're back to Jaipur. Built of pink sandstone, it's known as the Pink City. It's a planned city, started in 1727. The landmark of the city is Hawa Mahal, Palace of the Winds. It's 5 stories high, but 1 room deep. And the veiled ladies of the harem could look down on the street. Textiles are a huge business in India. We watch these being printed. So you can see the first stamp is done. They apply a second design, and they can apply up to 9 different stamps. They were making intricate wool rugs, also making silk rugs. This one, about a month and a half to make, would sell for about 500 Canadian. If it was silk, about 1,200 Canadian. And then a rickshaw ride through city streets is something everybody should experience. The summer palace, built to try and keep royalty cool in the summer heat. And the informal milk market was unbelievable. You can see this lady just has a 1 liter container. She just wants a little container of milk. The milk is examined, it's tested by feel, it's tasted, it's mixed, and then it's sold by 1 liter measures to locals and to vendors and to restaurants and so on. The milkmen of Jaipur. Just out of the city is the Agra Fort, sitting high atop a mountain. We're lucky enough to get a ride to the top on these beautifully painted elephants. Quite a sight for sure. The favorite room was the Sheesh Mahal, and they had tiny mirrors in all their decoration. And apparently, when the room was lit by candlelight, it would just sparkle at night. Absolutely exquisite. And Ganesh Pole was built for the ladies of the harem. And the colors inside are still extremely vibrant. Everywhere we turn, the scene attracts us. Reminds us of the Great Wall of China. And here he's taking his elephant home for the night. At Jantar Mantar, built in 1728, is the largest sundial on Earth. At the right time of year, it's accurate to 2 seconds. And it's just astonishing to think of these things being built so long ago. They had all the signs of the zodiac there as well. And this was our second snake charming experience. These guys were again quite friendly. And we got up very close and personal with these king cobras. They assured us we weren't in any danger. You can see textiles are a part of the economy. This is a big market. Trucks lining the highways, waiting to get back into Delhi. Roadside rest stops. And people always, always, always on the move. And we did love the scenes of rural India, the land and the livestock. And then you see new subdivisions planned for the ever-growing population, 35 million a year. That's almost the population of Canada added every year. And then it's time to head south. Shukriya. Now, I've just added this as a second last slide here. This quote is not mine, and I got it from a lady who wrote a book, but I think it describes India very well. Such a highway of life exists nowhere else in the world. And the first line says 17.5% of the world's population lives in India compared to 4.5% in the United States. And we'll just leave this on maybe, Priscilla, if that's okay with you, and then I can go to the my blog address later. It's a fascinating country. If we had time, we would head south and see the spices and the houseboating and the fishing, but we'll leave that for another time.
Well, that was spectacular. So can I get you to stop sharing your screen and we'll have some question time?
Here we go.
Great. Okay. Well, wow. So I love all the detail. I don't know if everybody does, but I'm the kind of person that likes to know all the background. So thank you so much. I'm glad that you kept a journal so accurately. That was really interesting.
Our pleasure.
So not to be indelicate, but can you talk about the toilet situation in India?
Okay, so because I was the one who seemed to understand our guide best, I was the one who got to talk to the most, and I would go up to the front and I'd say, excuse me, we need a toilet break. He said, yes, ma'am, 10 minutes. 10 minutes would go by and he would say, yep, just 10 minutes. Now, when we did finally stop at a toilet, which are very, very hard to come by, you can find a temple every 100 yards, but you can't find a toilet almost anywhere. We stopped at a public toilet, and I have never, ever in all our travels seen anything so disgusting in my whole life. We now understood why, as we're driving down the roads, we see the men peeing on the side of the roads. We have seen men having bowel movements on the side of the road. I mean, that's just their way of life. It's just, in the hotels, there was no problem. But out on tour, boy, you better plan your bathroom breaks ahead of time. It was, and of course, the men, yes, they had no problems. They'd stop for a break, and the men would all go bathroom. Well, it's a little more difficult for women. But just, and sometimes you had to pay to pee. If you were urinating, it was so much. If you use a toilet, it was so much. A urinal was cheaper. Like there was just, it was fascinating. It's a whole culture into itself.
Good. Interesting. So how many were in your group?
I think there were 13 of us.
Okay.
It was a very nice size. Very,
Okay.
very nice size.
So it was an agricultural kind of tour then?
Yes. Like, so to make sure that you get out of the cities and see how small town life is and how most of the group, excluding me, but I've learned an awful lot in the last few years, have some sort of farm basis in their lives. So for them, asking the questions about farming in other countries is absolutely fascinating to them. My husband grew up on a farm, so I've got that farm background, but it is absolutely fascinating to see how they supply their populations with food. It's quite something.
Can you talk a bit about how much it cost, the trip?
Yes, it's an expensive trip. And so it cost us $22,000 for this 3 weeks of all inclusive, absolutely everything. Now I'm talking about the week in the South that you didn't get to see, because that included houseboating and more national parks and spice farms and things like that. Now you could easily reduce that by not flying as expensively as we did, because we took Emirates Air. We got a really good deal and decided that because it was 13 hours flying, we decided that we would 13 time zones, that we decided we would treat ourselves this time. And as you can see, hopefully by some of the pictures, the hotels were also, I guess, 5-star. I mean, they were pretty incredible hotels that we stayed at as well. So I know that's a massive amount of money, but I know it can be reduced quite substantially if you worked with your travel agent. So yeah, or did it yourself.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk about the temperatures?
We varied from, it would go down to 20 at night, maybe sometimes slightly cooler. And I know we got up to 40 one day. And so it was really quite substantially hot. And But because we were always on the move, you just deal with it. But it was warm, yes, which is one reason why we'd be in shorts going into a temple, and yet we didn't mean to. I mean, we knew if we were going to a temple, we would wear pants that day. But
and the bus was air conditioned.
yes,
That was my other question. Yeah. So at least you knew you got back on the bus, you could cool off a bit.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
in the winter, like our winter. Yeah.
Yes,
February, March.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Gerry, I see your hair is not orange.
Yeah,
Take
not
that
yet.
And you're not wearing a turban. What? No, you
Oh, I'm
decided
not
not to.
going to either. Yeah.
Oh no, it was quite something to get to try those things on though, and one of the ladies did try on a sari in one of the stores. Like she picked out a material they like and they would wrap her in it. So we had those experiences. I did buy I think it was on this trip, I bought a very nice silk vest, and it was made for me, but it didn't fit right, so I don't have it anymore. But
Well,
yeah.
that is my next question about souvenirs, because the markets and everything you went to, there were so many interesting things. You must have had
Oh, we did. We had a lot of fun. One thing was bangles for sure. I did bring home quite a number of bangles as gifts because you could buy bangles cheaply. You could also, of course, get pure gold bangles, but brought lots of bangles. I mentioned to you earlier, Priscilla, I got a ruby. You can see the ruby ring. That was my big purchase. And it was fun haggling and getting a deal on it. And then we have a wall, which unfortunately we couldn't show you because the lighting's wrong, where we buy something this size from every trip we take. And that was our trip there. And I always get a magnet, at least one, and a Christmas ornament as well. And there's our tiger that we didn't see. And the last item to show you is absolutely amazing marble work. And honestly, some of those pieces in there are tiny, tiny, put in by tweezer. And, we watch them being cut out. It's amazing, amazing marble work. It really is.
And how much would that weigh?
Gerry thought it was around 5 pounds at least.
It's heavy.
Yeah, so a nice addition to your luggage.
Yes, it was. And we were the third in our group to go through that had one of these in our suitcases. And when we got to customs, he says, look, I'm sorry, but something's going on here. And he said, what do you have in there? And so he actually made us open and show us. He said, well, you were the third one through. I figured something was wrong. But yes, it is a treasure. It is a treasure as well.
It's like beautiful, yeah. So your pictures are wonderful. Did you have a special camera?
No, we actually don't. We used to have all the cameras and lenses and everything. And when we went digital, we made a conscious decision to not carry weight around. So we use a little Panasonic Lumix, and we each have one. And it's very lightweight. It's point and shoot. I mean, you can play around with it. It's got a good telephoto lens on it. And we take a lot of pictures because both of us are photographing. And every night we will try to get rid of some pictures, but the majority of the work is done when we get home. I hope the pictures did come across okay. Again, using this little laptop, they may have lost some of the quality. I hope not too much. Yeah, so, yeah.
So the one other thing I wanted you to talk about was your blog.
There's our travel blog. Now, normally what I would do is this was done, it started just kind of for family to kind of keep track of us and have fun with where we were going. And now that we're not traveling, I've been putting on stuff from older trips that I hadn't blogged because I've only been blogging for a couple of years now. And so they're kind of not super well organized. Like at one point they would all be, from the Norway cruise. But the last 3 blogs I put on are from different stops in India that are kind of fun. One of them is the laundromat with 90, what are they called? Anyway, well, it's more than that, 900 big tubs, big cement tubs, and how they do the laundry because people don't do their own laundry. And it only costs like 5 cents to have a shirt ironed, so I probably wouldn't iron my own shirt either. So it's a good one. Another blog is about a festival where they have a huge statue, and at this festival they pour milk or honey or orange juice over the top of it, and the statue gets all colored, and they do it once every 12 years. So there's some pretty amazing things happening in India that would appeal to lots and lots of travelers.
Okay, great. Well, I hope some of our viewers will get a chance to have a look at that. So I'm going to have to ask, there we go. You shared it back again. You're getting really
Okay.
good at this. I'll have to have you back. You're pros. So
Wow.
I want to thank you for getting us out of central Alberta into another culture, another thing to think about in these interesting times we're living in. And I want to remind everybody about the January 6th when we get to go to Desolation Sound on the west coast of Vancouver, or sorry, BC. And Desolation, I mean, it's very beautiful. I hope people don't think that it's
It is. No, it's gorgeous. I've been there, yes.
okay. That's super. Well, thank you both, and enjoy the rest of your day.
It is our pleasure, and anytime you just give us a call.
Okay.
I
Thank
hope
you.
everybody enjoyed it. Thank you.
I'm
Thank
sure they
you.
did.